How do you write a CV that gets you job interviews? That is the single goal of your CV, to get you job interviews. My name's Lee. I've been in the recruitment and talent acquisition space for almost 20 years. I provide no-nonsense job search and career advice. If you're looking for really practical job search and career advice that you can apply day to day, then hit the subscribe button. Now, the single goal of a CV or a resume is to get you a job interview. Your CV is going to be read by either a recruiter or a hiring manager, or sometimes both. So it's important to understand one thing. Nobody is reading your CV word for word. They are skim reading it to see if you've got the skills and experience and are suitable for the role. So you need to bear that in mind when you're writing your CV. In this video, I'm going to show you step by step, including some examples from my actual CV, how you can achieve that. And do check out the link in the comments for a free CV template that is helping lots of people land job interviews. So let's start with the basics. The top of your CV should contain your name, your email address, your phone number, and your location. You don't need to include your full address, just the nearest town or city that you happen to be in. This is important for a couple of reasons. One, so recruiters know how to contact you, but two, recruiters know where you are based, even for fully remote roles. Now, if the role you've applied for is on-site or hybrid, then the recruiter's going to want to know that it's easily commutable for you. Recruiters get hundreds of applications from people that aren't even in the same country, let alone within commutable distance for the role. So don't make them guess. And for fully remote roles, some companies can't hire in certain countries or in certain locations. So again, by calling out on your CV where you are based, it is making it easier for the recruiter to make a decision. If you've got a decent and up-to-date LinkedIn profile, include the link to that in the contact information section as well. The next section is the professional summary. Now, this should be a couple of short sentences that says who you are, what you've done, and what you've achieved. So I'm going to read you now what it says on mine. An experienced and driven talent acquisition leader with a strong track record in building high-performing recruitment teams by delivery innovation, successful partnerships across multiple business functions, commercially focused, co-founded and successfully scaled a recruitment SaaS business, raising over £1 million in funding, currently leading the talent acquisition strategy for X. And that's it, a couple of sentences that in a nutshell tell the reader who you are and what you're about. The mistake that most people make is either they don't include a personal summary at all, or they write one that is way too long, or you need a couple of sentences. Next on your CV, you want a key skills section. Do you remember I said earlier that people will skim read your CV? This makes it really easy for them to see what your key skills are. Now choose between 6 to 8 key skills and include them in bullets on your CV. Try not to include really generic skills like highly organized or team player. Everybody uses those and you won't stand out. Try to only include skills that are relevant to the type of role that you're applying for. Checking out the job descriptions of the jobs that you're applying for will probably tell you what those key skills are. Obviously, only include them if you have actually got those skills. Now, everything that we've covered so far should fit comfortably into that first half page of your CV, which is a good thing. It's the first thing that a recruiter will skim read before they decide whether to read the rest of the CV or not. Don't worry how many pages long your CV is. If that first half page is really strong, recruiters will go on to read pages 2, 3, 4, or even 5. Next, we want to dive into your career history. Always start with your most recent role first. Include the company name, your job title, and the dates you've worked there as a subheading. This is where you have the opportunity to really showcase your skills and experience. The mistake that most people make in this section is they just list their responsibilities and what they did day to day. It just reads like a job description. You need to call out your achievements. Another mistake that people make is they provide no context as to the environment that they were working in, which is important, right? Say, for example, you're managing a social media campaign. Doing that for a global, well-recognized brand with plenty of budget is completely different than doing it for a small startup or scale-up with limited resources and limited budget. So you need to provide the context in your CV as well. So how do you do that? Well, I'm going to read for you now exactly word for word from my CV from one of my previous roles. Talent acquisition manager, leading the talent acquisition strategy across the group and leading a team of 9 talent acquisition professionals. I joined TalkTalk during a significant time of transformation in that we were relocating 400 roles from London to our new Manchester headquarters, whilst at the same time building a brand new talent acquisition function to replace the existing RPO. Coaching and mentoring the team to a more progressive way of acquiring talent saw, then in bullet points, reduce cost per hire from £5,432 to £1,682, reduced time to offer from 37 days to 30 days, and increased the talent acquisition team engagement score from 88 to 100, which is 45 above the true benchmark. Now, this section shows exactly what I've achieved in that role, but then also the context in which I achieved it. It basically says that the team I built hired people faster, more cost efficiently than they had ever done before, but then that the team were also super engaged and highly productive, which is exactly what all companies will want from their recruitment leader. You'll also notice that I've used short paragraphs, but then I've also limited the amount of bullet points that I use. I see way too many CVs that are just a long list of bullet points. Bullet points should only be used to call out specific information, stuff that you want to stand out, namely your achievements. And where possible, you want to quantify those achievements in numbers. For example, how I talked about reducing cost per hire and time to hire and including those numbers is way more powerful than me just saying, I reduced time to hire and cost per hire. So next, you want to continue listing the rest of your career history in the same way that we did for the first one. Now, if you've had a really long career, you don't need to do this for all of your jobs. You only need to do it for jobs within the last, say, 8 to 10 years. For any jobs older than that, all you need to do is list the company name, the job title, and the dates that you were there. And that's because it's highly unlikely that the stuff that you did 10 years ago is relevant today. The world has changed, the landscape has changed, and technology's changed. And you've probably learned a lot as well, so you've changed. After you've gone and listed all of your career experience, next we're going to move on to the education section. So the education section is always towards the end part of your CV, because for employers, experience is way more valuable than education alone. In the education section, you only need to include your highest level of education. So for example, if you've got a degree, you don't need to include your A-level results and your GCSE results, on the basis that you need good A-levels to do a degree. You need good GCSE results to do your A-levels. If you haven't got much work experience, feel free to include your A-levels, but if you've got 5+ years experience, you don't need to include your A-levels. Nobody cares that you got an A in business studies and a B in geography. You don't need to include them. Include any extra qualifications or certifications that are relevant to the role as well. I don't know, you might have done a Prince 2 certification for project management or an accountancy qualification. Put them in the education section. Now, everything that we've been through so far is the core of your CV. This is the stuff that the recruiter or the hiring manager will care most about. But what about hobbies or interests? You don't need to include them. In fact, including them can do more harm than good. For example, you may put on your CV that you are a marathon runner, you're a keen tennis player and boxer. Now, one hiring manager might look at those interests and think, you need to be really resilient and really self-motivated and disciplined to do those types of hobbies. But then another hiring manager might look at those hobbies and think, this person's clearly not a team player because they're all individual sports. It's nonsense and it shouldn't happen, but I have seen it happen. Including hobbies will never be the reason why you do get an interview, but they might be the reason that you don't get selected for an interview because of the bias that exists in anyone who might be reading your CV. And you don't have to include them. So why would you include something that may potentially lead to bias when you don't have to include it? The only time you should include hobbies is if they're relevant to the role that you're applying for. Say, for example, in your spare time, you enjoy taking broken cars and fixing them and repairing them to new. Now, if you're applying for a job as a car salesman, then you have acquired skills and knowledge via your hobby because it shows you've got additional knowledge about the thing that you're selling. It would be mental not to include that. And that is how you write a CV. Remember, The first page is the most important part of your CV. It should include your contact information, your personal summary, your key skills, and your most recent role. Don't worry about how many pages it is. A 4-page CV that is in an easy to read font and is well spaced is way better than a 2-page CV with a really small font and it's all crammed together, and it makes it really difficult for the reader to find the information that they're looking for. Check out the links in the comments and in my profile, where you'll find a link to a free CV template, my newsletter, and loads of different resources that will help you land your next job and help you in your career more generally. If you did find this video useful, go ahead and subscribe, because there is a lot more content coming. Cheers.